Hello, and welcome to the webinar. We are excited to share with you some of the highlights of Geomagic Control X 2020. Before we get started, I would like to mention a couple of housekeeping items. We invite you to ask questions throughout the presentation by using your Q&A tab on the right, as your phone is muted during the session. We will address the questions received at the end of the presentation. If we do not have time to answer your question, we will be sure to contact you directly following the webinar. Please note that this webinar is being recorded and will be sent via email within a few days. I would now like to introduce you to our presenter, Gregory George, Application Engineer Manager for 3D Systems. And with that, I will turn the floor over to Gregory.
Thank you, Lisa. As Lisa said, my name is Greg, and I'm very excited to be part of the announcement of Geomagic Control X 2020. Before we dive in, I always like to start with the vision for our product and what that is for Control X. So as you can see, we've talked about this in webinars in the past, but our goal is to ensure quality everywhere with Geomagic Control X. And in order to do that, the way we want to get there is to measure more parts more often in more places. And we want to ensure more reliability across people, teams, and locations, and empower more people within the organization to be involved in the quality at every step of the way. So in order to do that, we need to give more people within the organization access to the data within inside of Control X. That way we can get results faster and give an organization a complete view of the metrology process. So today we're going to highlight 9 areas within Control X 2020 of improvement. As you can see here, we have a lot of things going on with new updated CMM workflows, some directional tolerances, simulated CMM points. There's a lot of things to cover, so let's get started. First up, let's talk about new probing workflows. So we did a lot of work with probing workflows and giving you the ability to change the different construction methods on the fly while you're in the Live Inspect toolbar. We can give you different types of probing options. So in this case, let's go ahead and demonstrate. We'll go ahead and probe a plane here, and then I can go to geometry type and say that I want to probe a circle on the plane. So I'll go ahead and probe 3 points and create a circle on that plane. Now if I go to geometry type, I can change, and let's do a single point circle. So with a single point circle, if I probe a plane and I have a probe tip that is larger than the hole size, the intersection between the sphere of the probe and the plane will create a circle, thus making it really fast to probe different circle hole patterns. Now, another thing that we did is we made it easier to call out the probing method on a pre-planned inspection. And so in this case, what we're going to do is select a circle and say that we want to create a best fit circle from that CAD. And then when it comes time to go into Live Inspect, it will use that method specifically. Now below you can see that we have the methods outlined in the new table here. And in this table view, you can actually dictate whether or not to use the local plane, change it from a min or max method, and it will then carry those on. Now another area within the probing category that we worked on is the probing management. So now we give you a tabular view of the probe data and even allow you to filter out the probe points that you may or may not want to include in that probed feature. So in this example, you'll see that I have a cylinder, and this is a very extreme case where I have a point that's throwing that cylinder way out. So you can see all those turquoise colored points are the probed points. And then here's the new tabular view that we have. So as I scroll through this tabular view, you can see all the different features that are within inside of the document. And then you can select each one of those points if you wanted to rename it. And if we click on this specific cylinder here, you can see that there's one point over there that's throwing it way out, and you can cycle through, find that point, and even see the new fitting statistics get applied to the cylinder once I remove the points that I don't want. Now, if I hit rebuild, it'll go ahead and rebuild that cylinder for me and recalculate my dimensions. The next area that we worked on is actually a new revamped move device. So we're able to use move device to inspect large parts. So many times you have to take a portable CMM and do a bunch of probing and scanning work, and then you might have to relocate that device to another area to see maybe an occluded area or maybe extend the volume of the device. So we revamped the whole interface, and it actually behaves very similar way to Design X now. Another area that we're really excited about, because this really aligns with our vision for the product, is the addition of the inspection viewer. So the inspection viewer is going to be a free tool that allows users to open inspections and projects without having to have a licensed version of Control X. This fits within our vision again, and now everyone across the organization has the ability to use the inspection viewer. It allows you to open projects. You can edit display properties, create reports from the data contained in a CX project file. It does not need to be licensed. Again, once a user installs Control X, you have access to either the full Control X with a license, or it defaults over into a viewer if no license is available. So again, you can open up full CX project files and control different views and reporting options and even add more screenshots. So let's go ahead and take a look at the interface of the viewer. So if we go ahead and open up an existing inspection, you see that we have a probing inspection here. So I have a bunch of probed points and features here with dimensions. And you see that the features themselves are grayed out and they cannot be edited. But you do have the ability to control the visibility over all these different objects. Now below you can see that I can turn on and off the different dimensions and move them around and reorient this view. So if I wanted to go ahead and create a custom snapshot or a viewpoint, I can go ahead and create one, and then I can go ahead and toggle over and generate a report. So we're able to take the data that's already contained within this document and customize and create our own report inside of Control X Viewer. So you see that I took some of the options out and I say I only want to report on these objects here. And it takes me into our report customizer tool. And if I scroll down, you can see where I have my custom viewpoint that we created. And then if I want to, I can edit the report, move the table, change the size of the picture, the screenshot. So here's another example of taking a scanned data set inside of Control X. So in most instances, you cannot create any geometry inside of the viewer, but in this instance, what we're able to do is take a 3D comparison and update the color bar options so I can see a new scale. And then I can even pull new annotations on this data set. So this is one of the few areas where you can actually create a new dimension within the viewer, and it has to do with 3D annotations from a 3D comparison. Then if I want to, I can come in and edit the annotation style. You can see I can throw the deviation in there. Another new feature of Control X 2020 is the addition of directional tolerances to the feature. We added the ability to tolerance the X, Y, and Z locations independently with inside of Control X. We also went ahead and updated the ASCII geometry importer to also support those directional tolerances as well. And in this example, we'll go ahead and add separate tolerances to the circle in the deviation tolerances section. So you see with inside of this circle, down below we have deviation tolerance, and then you can control the X, Y, and Z tolerances separately now. So then you can even change it and create a different tolerance on the different circle. So now you see that I've created 4 different circles on the model with different XYZ tolerances. And the tolerances are also available in the properties, not just in the circle feature. And then they're available below in the tabular view. So if you scroll all the way over to the right, you'll see the deviation X, Y, and Z over here. And you have the ability to change them from that location as well. So if you wanted to go ahead and update that to 0.3, you can change that from the table itself or toggle back to or update it to 0.5. And then you'll see the colors update. Now, if I select all of them and go ahead and update the deviation of all of them all at the same time, I can do so. To go along with the directional tolerances, we also added the ability to create groups of similar annotations. So now we can apply separate annotation presets to individual dimensions now, offering users the ability to further customize their reports. Users can also create their own annotations based on just the information you want shown. Let's look at how this works. So if I come over to edit annotation, you see that there's this new style manager. So in the style manager, you kind of look at all the different categories of dimensions. So if we highlight circle, its preset is simple right now, but you could toggle it over to detailed or default. And you see we can cycle it through all these different default views. Now that controls all circles. But underneath, I can dictate individual circles some have simple, some have detailed toggles. So now I can control each individual circle's annotation viewpoint and customize its look and feel. So if you see, if I click on that and I say edit preset, we also have the ability to create our own. So if I wanted to come in and edit that annotation preset and toggle over to simple, you see that I can change the label and the annotation from there. Now I can change the view, add the different deviation X, Y, and Z that we just talked about, and put that in this circle's specific simple view. And then I can update and toggle that over here in the view. So that's the new annotation grouping. We've also updated our simulated CMM points to work off of point clouds and polygons. As many of you already know, we've created these simulated CMM points to allow users to essentially virtually probe objects that have been scanned. And what that helps us do is kind of convert older workflows into more of a modern scanning based workflow, because it allows us to probe things virtually the way we would have done maybe on a traditional CMM. So let's see how this works. Here is an example of a blade here, and I actually have a simulated CMM point contacting the side of the blade here. So you have the ability to adjust the direction, adjust the size, even change the different contact method, whether it's a probe or a rod, disc. So all these different simulated CMM points, they allow you to not only probe the object in a traditional fashion, but it will also help with different types of alignments as well. So you can use these simulated CMM points to create alignments. You can make dimensions off of them as you see here. And then we can even use them for a lot of other things as well, such as construction objects for features. An example would be selecting a few probed objects like this and creating a plane from them. Here's one of our favorite additions to CX 2020. We've updated the deviation location. So in the last version, we added deviation location. And for those of you that don't know, we measure the surface defects mainly for aerospace and automotive applications. But what we can do here is extract the deviation from a surface normal, and then we can annotate different characteristics of it. So we can measure the distance from a certain location. We can measure the depth of each dent in the surface. There's a lot of different things you can do here. In this version, we added the ability to measure the relative length and width regardless of the orientation, as you can see on the screenshot. So let's see how this works. So if I zoom into this sheet metal part and you see I have some defects in the surface, I can go ahead and select my coordinate and then select the poly faces that I want to work with. And once I create that selection, you'll see the method that we do this with. We actually create a CAD surface in the background that eliminates those defects. And in there, we have different extraction characteristics that we can apply to it. So we can look for things that are beyond a certain depth. And then I can find all those deviation objects and then go to the next step and characterize them. So in this instance, if I want to dimension them based on datums, I can toggle on the max deviation for each one. And I can turn on the major and minor width, which is the new functionality that we have here. And then I can even toggle on and off like color map of the objects and different types of views to show the dents in the surface. Now, when I hit the checkbox, you'll see that it creates the 2D dimension of each object to characterize its maximum width and minor width. So that's the new features inside of deviation location. Another area that we refreshed in CX is the automation server. So those of you that haven't used our automation server before, the idea is the software will run in the background and watch a folder for data to hit. And as you see from the screenshot over here on the left-hand side, you can monitor a certain folder and then you can set a bunch of characteristics. And the software will automatically grab scans and inspect them and output them with all the different settings of Control X to a certain location. What we've updated in this version is this ability to get triggered. There's different options of triggering here. So down below, you see that it has the option of taking scan counts or based on file name or time intervals. So the way this works here is you'll see I have all these different folders up and I have the settings here. So the first thing I'm going to do is say, let's get triggered with scan count of 6. So now if my scanner scans this object from 6 different viewpoints and I have 6 different individual files, the Control X will grab them and automatically take those 6 objects and use them all inside of the same inspection because they're the same object, right? So if we go ahead and drag those into a sample monitoring, and as soon as you put the 6 files in, Control X will grab them and handle them as one inspection. So now Control X is going to go in and automatically run a pre-planned inspection on those 6 files. So you can see here, it went ahead and measured this sheet metal part. And then on the output side, you can see that there's now a folder in there with my stamping inspection. And now I have a PDF report representing that inspection of the sheet metal part. So again, the enhancement here is the ability to trigger Control X in a variety of different methods beyond just having a single file have to hit our folder. We can actually use scan counts, file name, or time interval to get triggered. And finally, we're excited to announce that we're going to have a new 3D Sprint importer. So that we'll be able to measure 3D printed parts easier by importing the 3D Sprint files directly into Control X. So we're very excited to be able to import the data straight from the stage inside of 3D Sprint into Control X and use that as a nominal for inspection of your 3D printed parts, thus giving us the ability to do additive inspection. And that's all I had today for a presentation, but I did want to open it up today for a few questions. So if you submitted a question during the presentation, I'll go ahead and pull some of these up and give a few answers to them. But whatever we do not get answered during this presentation, we will answer you directly. And then we will send out a recorded version of this webinar for people to watch later. Let's see here. The first question I see here is, does the viewer require the same specs as Control X? So yes, it does require the same computer specs as Control X, because what we're really doing here is opening the software either in a full licensed mode or in a viewer mode. So the data inside of that container of a CX project file will be the same weight as it is whether you're using the product on a daily basis extracting measurements or loading that same data up to create reports from it. So the computer specs are going to be the same for the viewer as they are for the installed version of the software. And remember, it does install the viewer automatically as you install the software. Okay, here I see we can edit probe points, but can we add probed points? Yes, so you can add probe points by going into the pairing manager. So if you need to add more points to a feature, you can do so with the pairing. So, and then once the object is paired, then you can go in and edit the same way we did in the presentation today. Here's another one. When setting up a pre-planned inspection, can I dictate what features are probed and what features are extracted from scan data? Yeah, that is a really good point. In the early part of the presentation where I talked about how you can select what methods can be applied to probe data, inherently selecting one of those methods automatically tells Control X that you are probing that feature. So when you select a probing method, Now Control X from there on out understands that you're going to be probing that feature, and then all other features that don't have those methods associated with them will get extracted from scan data. So if you're setting up a project file without having any scan data from the beginning and you load your CAD model, you can click on the different features and then from the drop down dictate a method for those, and then when you go to live inspect, it will prompt you to probe those things, and then from there on out it will extract the rest of those dimensions from the scan data. So that looks like all the time we have today for questions. But if you have any additional questions, we will leave the meeting open for a few more minutes just to let you get them in. And then we'll respond to you directly and contact you with the answers. And remember that we will be sending out a recorded version of this webinar. So thank you for your time. For any additional resources, I always like to have this slide here to let everyone know to go to 3dsystems.com for more information about any of our software applications or hardware solutions. For sales information and pricing, go to geomagic.sales.americas@3dsystems.com. To download a trial, you can go to gettingstarted.geomagic.com. And again, we'll have a video recording later. So thank you a lot for your time.
Thank you, Gregory, for sharing with us some of the exciting things we can look forward to in Geomagic Control X 2020. And thank you to the audience for your time today. We hope that you have a great remainder of the day. Thank you.